We are talking The Locals. This is a movie from New Zealand, directed by Greg Page. Now, when you see a movie called The Locals, you're going to think it's going to be some type of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Deliverance kind of style, you know, Mountain Men, Hicks, Hillbillies type film. And in some ways there's an element of that in this movie, but it's actually more of a supernatural film. But how much of this plot do I say? Because there's actually quite a big twist about at the end of the third act. But let me give you the brief kind of headline here. It focuses on two young friends. As one of them has been dumped by his girlfriend, and he decides to go on a kind of a surfing trip with his mate, who's trying to try and cheer him up. Along the way, they bump into this kind of duo of girls who are kind of saying they're going to a party, and they decide to take this kind of shortcut across this rickety old bridge in hopes of following these girls to this this particular party. However, their car gets kind of run off the road, and there seems to be some local people that are somewhat hostile towards them. But there also seems to be something else that's going on. Something supernatural is afoot here. And there may well be larger stakes, you know, is all I'm kind of saying. It's a hard movie to tell you too much about because, like I said, the movie significantly changes direction about the end of the third act. So the bulk of the movie I can't really kind of say too much about because otherwise it will kind of spoil that big reveal. But first of all, let me talk about what works, I think, in this movie. So I think this is a good example of subverting expectations. The cover of this movie, the name of it, the sort of the screenshots, it kind of looks like you're going to get a standard wrong turn style, you know, Southern Comfort, Deliverance, kind of local people who are none too friendly to strangers kind of movie. And it will kind of significantly change into a much more of an intriguing story, I would say, with different elements at play and different sort of types of characters here. So the actual storyline, I think, is pretty good. And I gotta be honest with you, a little creepy. And you'll see kind of things that are introduced that don't look, I don't think they 100% look great on screen. The movie's 2003, so it's dating a little bit in regards to the kind of the technology that's used here. And there's some things that I think don't look particularly good, but nonetheless, it still has this weird kind of creepiness about it, this eerie sort of sense of what's kind of going on that I think this movie does really well. I also really liked the characters in this movie. Certainly our two main friends to begin with, I thought they're very different in character, but they do seem like genuine friends. You can imagine these two kind of hanging out, and there's not one which is insufferable, and like a douchey one. There's one that's certainly more of the Joker, but he still is good-natured and kind of looks after his friend, as vice versa. I think so often in these movies you'll see a group of friends, there's this sort of like, you'll think, why are you friends with this person? That isn't the case in this movie. I think the actors do a good job here of selling you on two different people that nonetheless you can see are genuine friends. But I also love the performances, some of the other performances as well, are two kind of females who they bump into. I thought they did a good job as well with their sort of characters, and again, you know, they have a kind of a certain vulnerability to them, and you kind of get the feels, I think, a little bit in this movie as well. Even though this movie isn't particularly flashy with effects, I do think it has a good sense of atmosphere. There are some scenes here that are nothing to do with special effects, but the way they're shot and kind of set up with certain kind of entities that are just sort of hanging around, let me just say, it looks really, really effective and eerie. Even though this is not like a classical literature kind of style movie, there are elements here that I feel really do kind of, make you think of that. The movie also has a bit of an interesting structure, because the movie has this twist that's relatively early on, and it's a twist that isn't like you'll get clues that kind of lead up to it, so it's not a complete shock, but it'll kind of like, and there's not some big reveal where the twist is revealed after a few things, and I think different people will kind of get it at different times. because you'll see certain sequences, you think, and then the penny will drop, and think, oh, that's what's actually kind of going on here. But it's an interesting movie in the way it's constructed, because like I said, it's not saving this kind of big reveal to the end. It's kind of having this big reveal at the end of the first act, and then ultimately having our characters have to deal with that kind of like that twist, which I think it's just an interestingly structured movie that I think is pretty good. What doesn't work, I think there is some poor cinematography here, unfortunately. So what do I mean by that? So we see sequences where, for example, our car with our two lads in it gets kind of broken down on this deserted kind of stretch of country lane, no lights around, and we see like obviously the headlights illuminating things, but there's clearly, like, you can see on the ground like other lights that are there to kind of obviously make it illuminated so we can see what's happening on set. And it looks like at times there's like another car pointing straight at these guys just so they can have more light. And although it makes it so you can kind of see what's going on, more could have been done, so I think, to kind of like hide these clearly external lights that are there to kind of like, you know, illuminate the kind of scene. And that happens kind of throughout the movie. So I do think there is some issues with some of the kind of the technical aspects there. Although I did love our central characters, we are introduced to a couple of other ones. We're introduced to one guy, for example, who may be friendly, he may not be. He seems aggressive, but he doesn't seem completely unsympathetic. And I could barely understand what he was saying. He kind of, his performance is very mumbly, and he's kind of talking. I can't actually understand what this bloke's saying. Weirdly, he looks like one of the Hemsworth family. He looks like kind of this guy who should be related to like Liam Hemsworth or Chris Hemsworth. He isn't, but you know, he just he looks like he should be related to them. And I think our main bad guy is a little bit. There are some sequences with him that are a little bit silly, I think, and he comes across as a little bit wooden. And his sequences, there's a sequence where he kills someone, for example. We see him slit this woman's neck, and I don't think that sequence was particularly handled very well. And again, it looks very staged. It doesn't look like he's kind of naturally kind of doing that. But overall, I did enjoy this movie, and I think if you kind of like a supernatural movie with kind of a little bit of kind of mystery that's kind of going on, but with a sprinkling of deliverance in there as well, this is a definite one to check out. It's not one I hear people talk about very often, but I'd recommend The Locals if you kind of like that kind of thing. I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. I did enjoy it. And I think the positives far outweigh the negatives. Have you seen The Locals? What did you think of it? Please leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.